Okay, we're recording. I'll kick us off here. Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Son of the Far Land podcast. I am here today with Elton Blackhair, a good friend of mine, and I'm glad to have you on. Elton, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Where are you hailing from? Where are you at right now?
I am in Talmadge, Utah.
Where's Talmadge? That's kind of
It's
eastern,
northeastern on the
northeast.
northeastern on the within the Ute Indian Reservation here.
Nice. I've got Elton on here today because we're going to talk a little bit about some of the backpacking trips he's been doing with some of the youth in his area. But first, I wanted to kind of get a little bit of background. I've known Elton for probably 15 years or so. I don't even know how long, but we've done a lot of stuff. Been in the mountains quite a bit together, and he's gonna give us a little bit of history about his tribe, the Ute tribe in the area, to start out with, and because it kind of pertains to what we're going to be talking about here in a minute. So go ahead and give us some a recap.
Yeah, so the Ute tribe is located in northeastern Utah. We have a three-band tribe. The Uinta, White River, and Uncompahgre were moved here from Colorado, and kind of the Uinta Mountain area, and we were put on this reservation here back in probably the 1860s, 1868. My people are from here. My mom's people, my mom's White River, my mom's Uncompahgre, my dad's White River.
Two different tribes.
Yeah. So we're actually right at the base of the Uinta Mountains. Today is where our reservation sits. And, we've been here for quite a while. So even though, that was when the reservation was, our people were kind of all over this area, just kind of migrated around the different states. So
now, as I understand, they're horse people.
Yeah, we got the horse from the Spanish, and we bred him to be kind of bigger because we're mountain people. Utes are mountain people, just kind of a bigger type of horse, and the buffalo we have here, elk, deer, all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Very cool. And you spent a lot of time hunting. You've got some military background. You were in the Marines for a while.
Yeah.
A little bit of your past.
Yeah. So I grew up here, joined the Marines. I was stationed in North Carolina. Kind of went, different places, but when I came home, being in the military wasn't real fun to camp. So I started backpacking again. We did when we were kids. My dad had run a program for troubled youth and took them all over the reservation, and that's kind of what I ended up doing too. But I first went, would hike the Highland Trail from Camas to Vernal, Kings Peak, just different places. So that's kind of where we ended up. But yeah, I do hunt and fish, and I more like to hunt, not necessarily fish so much, but my son and I go on our annual Labor Day trip to fish. But yeah, just
that whole range there, Kings Peak, the Uinta Mountains are just in that whole range there up by Duchesne County and up above Camas. There's a whole range of mountains up there that the Utes just wandered all over back before the reservation, right?
Right, yeah, the mountains, like the White River symbol is the rose, like my dad's people is the rose, because when that rose bloomed, our people knew it was safe to go over the passes, the mountain passes. So, and they had the bighorn, like the bighorn sheep still then, and my people would boil down the horns. It was what my dad told me, their people, and put it on their bow to kind of make it stronger. And just different, they kind of adapted to the mountains. Most people have like the plains tribe mentality, but we're kind of little both, I guess, but more mountainous region.
Yeah. So your dad started taking kids out. It wasn't just you Indians. This was kids from all over the place, right? That would come that who were having trouble with the law or with their parents or whatever, and he would take them up in the mountains.
Yeah. So, I mean, most of them were tribal members, but I know the program, I think, was a government program.
Okay.
So they, part of it was, so him and his friend Alan, I think they're still friends today. Yeah, they're still good friends today. But they did take kids out and, did the same, through the mountains and everything else. So, yeah, they did that when I was a kid. I remember going backpacking when I was a kid. So.
Why do you think it is? What do you think it is about? Because I know there's different wilderness programs for kids. I have a friend who went through a wilderness program when they were dealing with some drugs, and they had this huge transformation. What do you think it is about the mountains that does that?
I think it's more today's kids just gets them out of the environments they're in. Probably back then too, either way. But kids have so many more options today, than we did. I'm 47, 46, and so, but today's kids have, we had, just a few options even on the TV back then. But
Yeah.
kids today just have tons of things that they could be doing. Everything's evolved. So to just take them away from all of that and put them in the mountains, especially my kids that I've taken, they've benefited. I know they have, just, because you get them up there and they, some of them don't even know how to cook or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's good to show them that, well, you
I do. Actually, I should give a little history here. Elton invited us several times to come and help chaperone with some kids that would come up from different tribes, not just your own tribe, but we went up, I don't know how many times, maybe 3 or 4 times. I think my wife went up one more time than I did. And most of the time we were up in the Granddaddy Lake area. But we've hit some other areas that were just really high elevation, 11,000 feet, absolutely beautiful lakes everywhere. Can get cold. We'll talk a little bit about some crazy run-ins we had up there too with weather.
Yeah,
But those were some really fun times. My daughter was able to come with us, and there's no doubt these kids walk away with almost feeling triumphant after some of these expeditions, because and I'll give you one example. We had this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We had just left the trailhead going up to I think we had about 4.5 miles to hike in with backpacks, and some of these kids had never been, off their couch,
yeah.
alone in the mountains. And we had, I remember one kid, we were just a little bit up the trail, and already huffing and puffing. I noticed that they had a big pouch in their hoodie, like was full of oranges and apples.
Yeah.
And I'm just, okay, we're gonna have to lighten the load here a little bit. But along that stretch, that 4 miles was a big stretch for some of these kids. And by the time we got there, some of them just zonked out in their tents.
Yeah, that's what you like to see, that part. Yeah.
Yeah. The next day, though, this particular trip, we were towards the end of June, but we're 10,000 feet elevation, and anything can happen in that kind of elevation any time of year. And man, I think it was like 6:00 in the evening, and we got hit by a blizzard. And we packed up like within 20-30 minutes, because we were afraid we were going to lose our trail on the way home. There's a lot more to that story. It was a really crazy experience, but the thing I think that stood out to me the most was one of the kids, when we got back to the parking lot the very next day, we had to cut the trip short because of weather. But I just remember having this kid just said, I did it. Holy cow, I did it. And
Yeah.
it was really cool, because they'd never done anything like that. A lot of kids playing video games and doing stuff. And nowadays, to have them go out and have an experience like this is a rare opportunity. And so Elton has been kind of very influential. Actually, the one heading this whole thing up, I've been really impressed over the last year, several decade or however long it's been, that he's been heading up, raising the money, doing everything he can to get people and talk people into sending their kids with him up into the mountains with him and his dad, and sometimes me and my wife, sometimes my wife's sister. Now it seems like you've got it to a large degree on autopilot too, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, it took a little bit to I don't know. It took a little bit to kind of iron stuff out. I mean, I remember your wife and her sister. They were me and us three were the first ones, and that first time we had taken those kids up was like, I mean, we killed it. It was like 23 miles or something in like 3 days.
With packs.
And yeah. And so it took us a bit to kind of iron everything out and, get to where we are at. We started, it was, was 09, 010, it was 08, I think. We had started. So it's been a good decade.
Wow.
Of doing this.
Yeah.
And we just kind of, were able to get it down, pretty to a pretty good, what we needed to get done, versus the first few trips that we took. I always call it the Apollo 13 backpacking trip because it was a success. What did they call it? A successful failure. It was, even though we made it, it was
your brother got lost. The dog got lost. Search and rescue got called if I recall. Yeah. And the dog, you never saw the dog ever again.
Nope.
Right.
Yep. But dog is gone. I've lost a few dogs up in the mountains. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But that's so these are not without. I mean, you think about a little bit of risk here, and some of these kids have never been out, and the idea, we've got medical kits and we've all had to do CPR training, and this has been done over the last decade with a lot of effort on your part. I've watched Elton drive just hundreds of miles, delivering things, trying to rally people, trying to get kids interested, doing meetings, trying to raise money, all these different things over the last decade. Honestly, I've been super impressed. It's, I think, a really generous thing that you've done. And I think it's been probably, I think a lot of kids are walking away with a lot of memories that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And I've seen it because I've been on them.
Yeah, it's been rewarding. I mean, especially here towards the end. I mean, I know we kind of on autopilot and, we really shift towards safety with people in the mountains, being in the mountains, but our group has gotten larger over the time. I think the last group we had, we couldn't go just because of snow, but we did we had 26 kids.
Wow.
And then, a few of us. So that was, that it started with 6, it wasn't like 4. It was like, it was like 4.
Yeah.
But
we never knew who was going to show up. Like 10
I mean,
people
we always
be
got
committed. Yeah.
Yeah. We got tons of people that want to come, and then just day before everybody just backs out. So.
Part of the reason why I wanted to feature you on this, because this is, this podcast is about immersive travel. It's about getting out and experiencing new things, and nature is definitely one of those things. In the state of Utah and in the West, the Boy Scouts have been a really big influence for a lot of people. That is, in large part, is not being used as much anymore. So I think a lot of people I think this is worthy of keeping going. I think kids need to stay in the mountains. I think they need, we have a nature deficit disorder with kids. I think there's something to be said about, I heard somebody say mountains build character. I absolutely believe that. And I think a lot of people like you, like me, whoever, have got to kind of take the initiative nowadays and just really head things up and say, I'm taking a group of kids up. And because organizations in a lot of ways are not going to be doing that as much as they have in the past. And the nice thing is there's not as many rules. There's not as many, you can bring girls, boys, whatever you want to do, and do it in a way that's more accommodating to a group. And anyway, so I think this is a really good model to follow and to learn from. And yeah, we definitely, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
carrying one trip I had a really heavy pack on because I was helping carry for my daughter, and I was helping carry for one of the kids who just literally was so exhausted. I had his pack on and I had my pack on, and I remember just
Yeah.
I
The
remember
front
just
and the back. Yeah.
yep, in the front and the back, and I was holding on the back of his pants, and I remember whispering in his ear because we were trying to beat a storm, and I remember just saying, hey, if there's any time for you to summon your Indian ancestors, I need you to do that right now.
Yeah.
Yes. But sometimes we're teaching these kids for the first time how to fish, how to clean a fish. This is good stuff, and I think it's really just so awesome to get out. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about the environment. I mean, what it's like up in some of these regions. The last region I went to, we were up in some lakes. I don't even remember the name of those lakes, but man, I mean, there's moose up there. There's beautiful lakes. I remember your dad saying we were going to go on a hike, and we're kind of close to alpine area where the trees no longer are growing because it's so high, and we're camped just below that area, and we were going to go hike to this peak, and your dad said, granted I had like a sweater on, and your dad said it's going to rain in like half an hour.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe him. We were hiking we got up to the peak, and this storm came out of nowhere, and it just, I mean, I was so cold. It came out and it was a blizzard and hailing and rain and everything, and we kind of had to bust out of there. But this is absolutely beautiful terrain, pine trees, animals, deer. We go swimming in these lakes. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
Any-
the people from the Wasatch Front, you guys got White Pine, and a lot of people go up to Mirror Lake and that area, the western side of the Uintas. But if you just keep coming another couple hours, past, even the Granddaddy area is pretty frequented. But the last places we went to in Chipeta, you notice there were nobody,
Chipeta.
no people, nobody there.
No.
And we went into the Reeder Lakes area.
That's
and
where it was. That's right.
If you want to keep going west of there, through Painter's Basin, Garfield Basin, Anderson, towards Anderson Pass and King, that there's nobody there. I mean, Dad and I hiked from that Granddaddy. Once we got out of Granddaddy, we saw like one guy in like 5 days. I mean, it was like, that's how crazy it was. And the weird thing is that dude didn't say nothing. Like when we passed him, we were coming over the top of Pass. I think it was Porcupine Pass. And that guy didn't say nothing. He just kept walking by us, and I was like, okay. But he had just him and his dog, and it was just kind of odd after 2 days of, then you're finally seeing somebody and that dude don't say nothing. It was like, oh, but that's kind of, environment I've seen. And you're right, up that high, I've had, those marmots run between my legs when I'm sitting on a rock.
Yeah.
I've seen a wolverine,
The Wolverine. Now that is a
yeah,
rare sight.
yeah. And when we got down, we told the Forest Service, and because they they try to keep track of where they are. Place called Ledge Lake. We were just sitting there, and it was amazing. Just we had hiked up from the Rock Creek Basin and got to Ledge Lake, and I'm just sitting there with my dad, and we look over to the left, and there's a wolverine standing there on the shore, and he didn't do anything. He just looked at us and started walking off, and tried to grab my camera and get a good picture of him, but I realized about 30 seconds into it that I'm chasing a wolverine. I should probably stop not do that. So same
This
thing,
is a
but,
good this is a good segue into, because I know how you feel about bears too.
Yeah.
You're not a big fan of, I mean, you like bears, you just don't like bears.
I just don't. I mean, they're. I mean, I'm a pretty big dude. I'm 6
Yeah.
foot. And so I'm not. There's not too many, but you can't wrestle a bear. Or you can't. And you just kind of stay your distance, because some of these animals are scared of you. But a bear, if they're hungry or whatever, they'll come into your camp and mess with stuff and do crazy things. So that that's the big thing about bears. If you wanted to get them out, you really couldn't.
All right. Well, one of my favorite things I have to say about camping and backpacking with you is some of the legends and some of the campfire talk we get over, because we have some history about some of the 411 is one of our favorite talks. What was that? What's that book called that you're always talking about?
Yeah, Missing 411, actually. So, let's see. Yeah, so there it is. A guy named David Paulides. Yeah, David Paulides wrote that book. I have my whole Bigfoot collection here, but
yeah. Bigfoot is a big topic of ours over the campfire, and I got to tell you, I'm going to preface this with a story. I took a class up at Utah State. And that guy up at University of Idaho or whatever that studied Bigfoot, like he's the professor up there.
Jeff Meldrum.
That's his name. Okay. So I took this class up at Utah State, and this was only about 5 years ago. Because I took a 13-year sabbatical, and I didn't go to school for a little while, and I thought maybe I'll go finish my degree. And I took a class that was just an elective called Living with Wildlife. And 2 days out of that class, the professor, he asked everybody ahead of time. He said, how many people here believe in Bigfoot? And we had 90 kids in the class. And I think there was maybe 1 or 2 people that raised their hand. And then we did the next day to 2 days studying it, some of the stuff that Meldrum, the professor up at University, he was supposed to come and speak to us. And then we kind of went through the scenario, and we found out there are so many different species and animals throughout the world that have never been, that are still every day we're discovering new animals, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the Billy Ape, one of those.
Yes, all these different things. Whatever the case, after the 2 days, it was so convincing. The professor asked everybody, he said, how many here absolutely do not believe in Bigfoot? And there were only 2 people who didn't. And then how many here think maybe? And 95% of the class raised their hand. And then how many believe that absolutely he believed? And then there was a handful of people like, yeah, Bigfoot's the real deal. So we've talked about Bigfoot a lot. I think it's a fascinating topic. And anyway, that tends to be one of our conversations. Is there legend? Is there anything behind that to back that up in your realm, or what's
we're taught as little kids that is real,
in the Ute tribe,
in the Ute culture. Yeah. There's different names for it, the Uncapagres, and they all call it different names, but we as little kids, we're taught that's real. And there's different things. So like when you're in the mountains, you have to respect the mountains because they live there. Not only does like a Bigfoot, they're people.
Yeah.
They're people that live in the mountains and they have for a long time. So they're not there to hurt you, but you just leave well enough alone. You just leave them alone. Don't
Yeah.
bother them. They don't bother you. But there is there is a definite way to be in the mountains for Indian people, for you people. You just kind of have to respect where you're at and what you're doing. And when you don't, that's when stuff like that. Stuff. Different things. And even when you don't, you're just careful. Stuff happens.
Like losing dogs.
Yeah, my dogs were gone, and just there's no explanation. There's nothing. You hear different things in the mountains. You hear different sounds. People, see different things, and our experience. We haven't really had. I think we attribute that. We're always try to be mindful and careful. I think this last trip was a little more sketchy, not necessarily because of that, but it was pretty remote. But also there was a lot of bear sign where we went the last time.
Yeah.
And so you're always cautious in the mountains, but spiritually, you want to make sure that you're following what we were always taught. But
Which would be what?
Those just like again, like we a good example is like when you're in the mountains, you don't say your name. You don't call each other by their name. You don't because the Marupuch, you call him Marupuch, he'll mimic that. They'll mimic that what you're doing, and
Yeah.
he'll call you over. Like you don't say Casey, and they'll do that, and you'll go over there and see what it is, and then they'll take you.
Yeah.
Do something. So you don't want to. So we always say hey, or you always hear me say that. Hey, or what come. What are you guys doing? Or but you don't call somebody by their name. You don't whistle at night either. You don't whistle or be loud. You got to be respectful at night. Face, like if you have a fire, the men are supposed to face outward, right? Keep your back to the fire.
Now I remember your dad. I remember sitting with your dad around the campfire, and he was. We were talking about some really cool stories, but I remember watching him go off and kind of face into the trees and just offer a prayer.
Yes. Yep. When you arrive, you want to pray. Just let them know that you're there. You're not gonna, mess around with. You're just there for a little while, and then you're gonna leave. Just try not to mess with a whole lot of stuff. I think if you're diligent and making that stuff happen, for yourself, makes everybody feel better too.
Yeah.
But not only that, but being in the mountains, you don't ever want to take that for granted. People can get hurt, quick, and especially at that elevation, that high up. That we said, you mentioned the Boy Scouts. There was a kid that had died one canyon over from where we were. He was in the Boy Scouts, and that mountain sickness, or the AMS.
The altitude.
The altitude. That's a real issue.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see that too, like when you're that high up, and then you see something that's not supposed to be there. You're like, well,
yeah.
Who's up here?
Yeah.
And
it's
you
so
see
remote.
something or hear something, you're like, well, what human or who would be walking around up here?
Yeah.
And if you're up there for a reason. You're to enjoy yourself. You're not going to be trying to mess with people, but it's still like you're there for a reason. Stick to that reason. Don't go. And if you do find something, just leave it alone. And but yeah, that the mountain sickness is that's a real issue. So when you mentioned people coming up, you want to make sure that they know, at least have gone a couple of times. I think that's where some of these guys get in trouble, is they go, and I'm no better. That first year we went up, we took those kids that far. I mean, I'm not saying but that's something I learned over 10 years is, you can't push people past their limits.
Yeah.
There's pushing people, and then there's, but I think that's the big lesson we learned. Luckily, nobody's been hurt.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the big thing with safety. So yeah, and I'm pretty fortunate to have you guys have helped out for that long. We had
Yeah.
some other guys that had come on board and everything. So
It's
we've been pretty good.
it's fun, and we're always open. But I really enjoy your dad. I really enjoyed this last time we went up. I remember I sat around for an hour or two around the campfire, and one of the things I really enjoyed about you and your dad, I think you just brought. I remember just sitting there by the fire, and all of a sudden you came along and just threw one of your shirts into the fire.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an actually really good practice. You don't have to carry that back. This is an old shirt, shirt you don't want anymore. Here's a great way to get rid of it. Just burn it in the fire, and then you don't have to carry it back in it's dead weight.
Yeah.
But I had a really amazing conversation with your dad. He was telling me a story about his grandfather, and when he was a kid and he was outside, and his grandfather was a medicine man. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
And he remember him telling me that he would when he was like 9 years old, he'd sit outside. He would sit outside and just be kind of the go-to boy if his grandfather needed anything. But I remember him telling me about an old woman who was not able to walk, and they brought her into the teepee or whatever it was that was where he was in there. They brought her in there, him, your great grandpa, and your great grandma. And then the very next morning, this woman came out walking on her 2 feet. I mean, she was there all night, and he was telling me the story, and it was just really, really amazing story. And he was like 9 years old, just sitting there and watching this whole thing happen. But anyway, I thought that was really cool, and I really enjoyed. I mean, you have two. I've always really enjoyed you and your dad because not only are you guys like full blown Indian, and you have so much heritage and culture, but you're also two of the most diehard Star Trek fans that I've ever met.
Yeah, I like Star Trek. I'm more on the Star Wars
Yeah,
side.
Star Wars, Star Trek.
My cool collection back here.
Yeah. Was it your dad that had like the whole Enterprise memorized? He closed his eyes and he got the whole map of the Enterprise memorized. I thought that was
oh yeah, that's Dad. I mean, I like Star Trek too.
Yeah.
But I would have to tip the Star Trek to my dad.
So you're gonna keep doing this trip, or how's it coming? How maybe talk a little bit about some of the logistics.
Well, you did talk about this being a immersive travel.
Yeah.
And because last year, I don't know, you knew, Utah was hit real hard with the snow. And so last year we in June, the normal time that we go up, there was still 5 foot of snow in Chipeta.
That's right.
So we weren't able to go, and we planned on going, but we had to cancel. But we did actually take it, we used the funds and we went south. So we went to, and you'd be amazed how many people live in Utah and never go to the Delicate Arch and Goblin Valley, and Moab. So, we did that. We did that instead. I mean, it wasn't a lot of hiking is what we normally, like you mentioned, I like it when the kids hike in and they're so tired that they just go to sleep. And that's usually our first night, the first night we get there, they're usually just boom, zonked out. And I like that because, not a lot, you can kind of judge who's feeling sick and who's, you can still judge that altitude that night, that first night. And if, there are real bad cases, you can get them out.
Yeah.
So that's good. But, I like that. But, we did go south, and it was more of a camping type
national
deal,
parks. And
but as a tribe, they let us in for free to all the parks,
Oh, wow.
So we stayed at the Moon Lake. I think your sister-in-law came with us.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, and so they all came up, and we there was a lot of chaperones, so we took the tribe's recreation bus. We took a kind of a bigger bus, and there was a bunch of
Cool.
kids that came down. So it was cool. We camped in a place called Moonflower Canyon in the right by the river, and the kids could hike up it's probably about a quarter mile, probably a little longer, 3/4 mile hike into the canyon right where we camped, and then they could come out, and then we took them to the Delicate Arch the next day, and everybody made it up, and there's some pretty cool pictures we got, and then we took everybody to the Blue Pig for some food. If you're in Moab, go to the Blue Pig. It's good.
It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah. And then the next day we got up and went to Goblin Valley. So it was a Friday, got there, camped overnight, stayed in Moab that night again. And then the next day we woke up and drove over. It's not that far, it's like an hour and a half maybe from Moab to Goblin Valley. So we went to Goblin Valley, and we hiked the sand. I don't know if you've ever been, but if people ever get a chance, that's a state park. So you'll want to, the state park, there are little sand goblins that you can, march around in.
Little formations.
Yeah, and then one of the chaperones had been there a couple of times, so he knew like 2 slot canyons. So the kids got to go in some slot canyons, and that was really cool. That was a cool trip. I mean, you do a lot of babysitting, but it's but the camping and all of that. But if you ever get to southern Utah, my daughter and I took a trip. It was pretty epic. It was 7 days. Canyonlands, arches, natural bridges.
So awesome. Yeah,
all of those. Powell. We hiked Angel's Landing. Cedar Breaks, Lower Calf Creek. We did it all. Bryce Canyon. We were gonna go this year. We were gonna had permits to go into the Fiery Furnace, and then to the Fiery Furnace. Can you hear me? Oh,
yeah.
To go to the Fiery Furnace, and then we were gonna hike rim to rim Grand Canyon, but that's all done now, canceled.
So what's in this for you? I've seen you work your butt off to put these things on every year. Why? What's the drive? What is it you hope to get out of it? What do you hope these kids to get out of it? And this is the thing I think I want more to kind of end on here, because logistics. I mean, if you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to make something like this happen. But so what is the why behind what you're doing?
I enjoy it. I enjoy teaching. I coach basketball too. But I think just giving kids opportunity. I mean, most of this is once in a lifetime for some of these kids.
Yeah.
And being able to give them that, like you say, like some of these kids, just their parents were in tears, when they some of their parents are like, I can't believe my kid did this, so
yeah.
If you can give them that, that's rewarding. For me, it was part of it was to see if I could do it, early on, to get in, and just to get to know people, and give that opportunity, and then just being able to know people from different backgrounds and different places, and to kind of get what I do for a living, and able to generate funds that way and apply it to something other than video games for these kids or whatever. And just and like I said, at first it wasn't real popular, but I think the more the word got out, the more opportunity there were for people to hear about it. We get them all. The school, the Uinta River High School here, wants to start a program with it,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
everything else. So, it's,
Because it
so
was, I remember you having to really work
yeah,
really hard to convince people to do this. And I think that's a really amazing model. I think not just convincing people, but to raise some funds, but also convincing parents and convincing kids. And sometimes we would go and we'd be like, oh, yeah, there's gonna be like 15 people come, and then the next day we'd like four
yeah,
people would show up, and that was. And so it's really rewarding to the flywheel took a little bit of time to get going, but it was really rewarding to watch. Now he had 26 kids. That's
yeah,
that's that's really awesome.
yeah.
So I cut
That's
you
it.
off there. Is that what else did you have to say about that?
No, that's it. People don't get that opportunity, and especially, for my people, I wanted that for my people too, to give them that opportunity. People, you got a lot of people get in their cars and go up to campgrounds, the popular places here, Moon Lake, and just different things like that, and places on the res. But where we go it's not that kind of camping. It's the pack it in, pack it out, you make your own food camping. So it's
Yeah,
that it's really that I enjoy. Plus, I enjoy being up there.
yeah, and it connects. Your dad, I know, was big on this. Was connecting some of these kids to their heritage
Yep.
and having them be able to see the places where their people roamed and went on horseback and all this stuff and how they lived to a certain degree.
Yeah, I like having him there because he's a little more. He understands. He grew up, with my great grandpa, and he understands all the, what that needs to happen and need to do. But so I enjoy when he comes,
Yeah,
because he can explain all that a lot better. But I mean, I know a lot of the things that we've done. Um, uh, just the history on that's been good. But I know that he's a little, he kind of clears it up a lot better.
yeah.
Um, and we're all kind of secretive about stuff. When it comes to our people.
Hmm.
But and so he's a little more open on, able to share what we can and what we know. So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Elton. I've always looked up to you, and I think it's been awesome what you've done. And you were one of the first people I thought about when I thought I gotta interview him when I'm doing this immersive travel, because for the West and this area and anybody around mountains, I think this is one of the most incredible immersive type travel experiences you can have with a group of people surviving at high altitudes in the mountains and climbing and struggling and fording rivers and messing with wildlife and sit around a campfire. I think is about as immersive as it gets. So
Yeah,
I, I appreciate your time. This has been awesome. And this has been another episode of Son of the Far Land. So thanks, Elton.
cool. Later.